let's begin. You want to give the introduction?
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to day 3 of Investec ESG 2.0 Conclave. Today we have with us Ms. Jyoti Bansal, Head of Sustainability at Tata Power, to take us through the company's sustainability strategy and practices. As a reminder, all participants are requested to put yourself on mute, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Please note that this call is being recorded as per regulatory guidelines. I now hand over the conference to Mr. Apurva Bahadur, Research Analyst, Power Utilities at Investec. Thank you, and over to you, Apurva.
Thanks, Pratik. And thanks, Jyoti, for sparing time for us to share company's vision and then the sustainability strategy. So just to give a brief introduction about Jyoti. She is an engineer MBA, alumnus of CP, FMS. Entered media right out of these schools, and she has spent over the last 26 years working across traditional and digital media companies, including Lindas, Mediacom, Omnicom, etc. She has also worked in the on the internet side of things, dabbling into research and product development with Dunya.com, when digital was still being evangelized largely by angel investors. In the last 7 years since the launch, it's launched in 2013, Jyoti built EXP to a $400 million plus agency, $400 million plus agency, and delivered a hat-trick at Cannes, 7 Lions in 5 years, and built an enviable portfolio of blue chip clients like Unilever, Volkswagen, HP, CAP, etc. In December 2020, she decided to join Tata Power as the custodian of their sustainability, CSR, brand building, and digital transformation agenda, to actualize the vision of company's vision of becoming an agile, customer-centric green energy corporation. A strong believer in power of technology to change life and its immense potential to build a sustainable future. Jyoti's motto is consumers merge and consume technology effortlessly in their life. Our solutions have to reflect this. With this, I will hand over the conference to Jyoti to take us through the strategy and share her views, please. Thank you, Jyoti.
Thank you, Apurva, for that introduction, and very warm welcome and good afternoon to all of you. What we will do is, I have my colleagues here with me, Mr. Rahul Shah, who looks after investor relations for us, Ms. Vaishnavi and Ms. Dr. Richa Gautam, who are part of the sustainability team. So we will be sharing a presentation which will give you an update on what have we been up to at Tata Power from the perspective of our sustainability agenda. And then we can take questions after that. Vaishnavi and Richa will co-present this with me and take the questions as we go forward. And I will lean into Rahul as he did during the presentation. So I will just give me a minute to share a deck and then we can start. Ma'am, you are on mute. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So I will start. Apurva, you are able to see the screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I will start now. So we will just take you through a few key pointers of what has been happening at Tata Power and how is it that we have framed our sustainability strategy and how does it integrate into our overall business strategy. So I think the title slide sort of sets the theme that we are transforming as an organization towards building a sustainable future. What we do at Tata Power is that we don't just look inward, we actually understand that we are working in a global ESG context and that every action that we take affects everything around us. So therefore what we look at is what is happening in the world, and I'm sure all of you know as much as we do that at the COP26 held in Glasgow in November, at least 23 nations have made new commitments to phase down coal, and 25 countries came together with public finance institutions to encourage ending of international public support for fossil fuel energy by 2022. 450 firms from 45 countries are committing to transforming economies towards net zero emissions. So all these are positive pointers, but interestingly enough, the IPCC report on human-driven global warming does not really give as much of a positive spin to the whole state of affairs as we would like it to have, and it clearly outlines that there are various things happening due to climate change, which are obviously the result of human action, and unless operators take immediate action and responsible action, the commitment to keep warming close to 1.5 or 2 degrees below is going to probably become out of reach. From an India perspective, the Prime Minister has committed to a net zero agenda by 2070, non-fossil energy capacity by 500 gigawatts, and 50% of energy requirements coming from renewable energy by 2030. Now you will see that some of the statements that we are making and all the work that we are doing going forward is in line with and maybe ahead of what the Prime Minister has committed and said at the COP26. Some of the big implications for business are here, and you will see through the presentation that we are actually doing all of this already way ahead of the curve. From the focus on net zero to investing in clean technology to having clear plans to reach there. How do we finance all of this? Whether we are transparent or not, and what are we doing in terms of our supply chain responsibility also. So, and I think the fact that you're all here is sort of testimony to the fact that ESG is today very, very important for all investing community. It is moved from being just a regulatory or a social license to operate kind of an agenda to actually being value protective, and there is increasing demand from all quarters for organizations to be responsible and to transparently declare what are the actions they are taking towards their ESG agenda. So just obviously we would like to start with some good news from our perspective. S&P Global and CRISIL, both one global and one large Indian rating agency, have ranked Tata Power among the top energy utilities in terms of their focus on the ESG work. 67 on 100 is our score on the S&P Global, which places us in the 80th percentile globally. We still have work to do. We are very cognizant of that, but we are way ahead of the global sector average, and our score has increased by 40% over last time, so which clearly highlights the much higher focus that we are putting on all this work internally. Similarly for CRISIL, this was the first time that they set out this rating, and we are the top ranked energy utility. CDP has given us a score improvement from C to D on the water front, and on the CO2 mitigation front we are still at a C. We are cognizant and we are taking action. So our work on the SBTi is WIP. We have already committed to the initiative, and we are working towards quantifying our targets by the end of the next financial year. Similarly, on the Reuters evaluation, we have had a 15% score improvement. So this is just to sort of set agenda that we are doing the right thing. We know we have some distance to cover, but we are very clear that this is the right path, and everything that we are doing will take us to where we want to be. So just to clearly outline what our ESG aspiration is, we have divided it into 6 key areas. We have committed to carbon neutrality by 2045. We have in fact advanced this from our earlier 2050 commitment. Clean capacity of 80% by 2030. So we are working towards a 15 gigawatt capacity by 2025 and 25 gigawatts by 2030 on our renewable portfolio. We have a huge focus on our customer-centric business. We are promoting mass adoption of solar rooftop panels, solar pumps, microgrids, home automation. And we are also the largest player currently in the EV charging infrastructure ecosystem to spur the adoption of e-mobility by Indian consumers. Now, water management is critical, so we are adopting practices to become 100% water neutral before 2030. Similarly, the waste and fly ash that gets generated as part of our operations, 100% utilization and 100% zero waste to landfill before 2030 is our target. And from our social responsibility perspective, our ambition and target is to directly impact 30 million lives by 2026. We are following both physical and virtual blended models to ensure that we are able to do that. Our focus is on sustainable livelihoods. We have a huge focus on women's self-help groups, and we are working towards building capabilities of 25,000 plus self-help groups by 2026. We are also very focused and committed that 30% of our outreach has to be via affirmative action to reach the particularly disadvantaged groups. We have obviously linked our sustainability agenda via the UN SDGs into three broad areas from a business SDG perspective, which is decarbonization, thought leadership, and circular economy. I've already outlined our aspiration on that. CSR SDGs, which are linked to our work with our communities, and all our businesses work with the prioritized SDGs to have a very clear roadmap for where they want to be. I think an example of the leadership role that we are taking in the sector is that Tata Power was the only Indian utility among 11 companies to develop the SDG roadmap with WBCSC for sector transformation, which then encourages accelerated action. We have also evangelized this in India. In November, we held a webinar where 12 to 15 people from these large utilities, both Indian and global, participated, and we had a registered member base of about 500 people who attended this to accelerate business action in line with these SDG roadmap that has been created. We are working very closely with WBCSD to ensure and encourage adoption. Similarly, like I mentioned, we are committed to the Science-Based Target Initiative. By 2023, we are aiming to have our targets presented to SBTi for official validation and then onwards from there. The one key thing that I want to highlight is that sustainability is not just a buzzword at Tata Power. It actually sits at the core of our strategic evaluation of our businesses and the way forward strategy that we put work with our clusters. So it really sits at the heart of our business strategy and informs our strategic decisions. Our CFOs, our cluster heads, and our strategy teams are involved in this process, and that is why we have been able to make progress that we have made in the last few years on this agenda. And just to give you a roadmap, we were at 16% clean energy in 2015. We are already at 31% in 2021. We aim to be 80% in 2030, and while we had earlier set a benchmark of 100% by 2050, we have now advanced it to 2045. So that's basically how we are ensuring that we meet the commitments that we are making. It is very important to involve all our stakeholders in our carbon mitigation journey, and therefore we have a framework which includes this across all our stakeholder groups, right from our suppliers to our responsible supply chain management policies, to our businesses, to our employees. We have very recently launched an app for all employees which not only encourages them to carpool or to do shared transport to reduce travel emissions, but also to be aware of what their personal carbon footprint is and take small steps to ensure that they can reduce it. And similarly for our customers and our communities. So Do Green is the overarching umbrella vision under which all our customer programs are being brought together. It is all about giving our retail customers smart green choices which allow them to make small changes in their lifestyle to work towards a greener tomorrow, and all our new business lines are aligned into that, whether it is Easy Home, which allows you smart home solutions to optimize your energy usage at home, or Easy Charge to help you adopt an EV with lesser focus on range anxiety because we are setting up a very large infrastructure. Smart meters to ensure that you can optimize your energy consumption at home, and green cars which actually allows you to opt for 100% renewable energy for your home or your small business or your large business. Multiple low carbon business offerings to our consumers, whether it is microgrid. So India, we are the largest microgrid company in India. We have already installed 186 microgrid sites in UP and Bihar. We are going to expand this into Odisha very soon, and we want to touch 10,000 villages by FY 27. Solar pumps to help our agri consumers. Rooftop solar, they will already have a 750 megawatt of rooftop capacity, and we are working towards expanding this every single day. We are already present in 150 odd cities. EV charging, we already have 1,000 plus public EV charging points, 8,000 plus home chargers, and ESCO, which actually allows large corporates to understand their energy needs and to optimize energy consumption, is also a huge focus for us. We already have a 12.5 million customer base in FY21. Our intent is to increase this to 40 million in the next few years. Things like smart grid technologies, we have 65,000 smart meters already installed across Mumbai and Delhi for our customers. I mentioned the option to use 100% green energy for your office or your home. The one big thing which we are putting huge focus on is clean energy technology incubation. So we have a joint initiative with Tata Trust and the Government of India called the Clean Energy Incubation Center. It is the first of its kind setup which works with entrepreneurs and innovators and supports them to complete lab-to-market incubation for clean energy enterprises. We have managed to bring some of them close to market, and we will see more of that going forward. There are also multiple other climate mitigation, climate control initiatives like demand side management, energy efficiency programs, digitalization towards 100% paperless processes, and multiple green power solutions, whether it is things like solar power call center at Powai, or powering the cricket stadium at Brabourne, or developing 225 megawatts of hybrid renewable capacity, and then onwards to more. We are on this continuously evolving journey. We also want to ensure that we are not damaging the environment that our plants and our operations operate in, and hence ecosystem conservation has been a huge focus for Tata Power all the years of its existence, whether it is the large-scale afforestation drives which are led by our employee volunteers, or the really iconic Western Ghats biodiversity hotspot conservation, where we have been involved for the last 50 years to conserve the freshwater fish called markhor, and I will talk a little bit about that in a couple of minutes from now. Or it is about already being cognizant that the renewable large solar park operations operate in a very different ecosystem, which is the grassland ecosystem, and how can we work there to ensure that our operations are adding to the environment and not really taking away from it. I just spoke about the markhor conservation project. We are very happy and proud that 50 years of our work has actually helped to get the Chorkudri Deccan markhor species out of the IUCN Red List, and they have recently classified it as least concern, which means that it is now sort of able to thrive in its natural form. We are still working with the other species, which is the golden markhor, and we know that we still have some more work to do on that. But the fact that we have been committed to a cause for 50 years and we don't give up, and we are ensuring that we continue the work, is I think testimony to the huge focus that we put on this effort. So I will now move on to what we are doing from a corporate responsibility perspective. Like I said, we have an intent to impact 30 million lives. We are largely building our interventions around 4 key pillars: education, employability, entrepreneurship and empowerment. And two very large programs are sort of underlining this whole effort. One is what we call the Anokha Dhaga program, which works with women SHGs. And our ambition is to build capacities of 25,000 SHGs, which in turn will then impact into 10 and more women in positive ways to help build sustainable livelihoods. The other program is called Adhikar, which actually works to provide access to government schemes which are already in operation to our communities. Coverage of 60% households of addressable population in our target regions is our ambition, and working with community leaders and trainers to ensure that we can deliver blended learning through government schools and panchayats as part of our education program. We have the Tara Skill Development Institute, whose single-minded focus is to empower and train youth with skills which allow them to get employment. The other focus is on the Tara Affirmative Action Focus, which runs at a group level, but which we also adopt at the Tara Power level. And we aim to ensure that 30% of our total outreach is under the Affirmative Action Plan. We also have a very, very strong employee mentoring program, and our employees collectively put in about 1 lakh plus hours per annum into various programs. And then of course there is the whole focus on safety with our employees, our workers, our business associates and so on, which is absolutely critical to our overall social peace. I'll just spend a couple of minutes on the gender diversity agenda, because that's something where we usually get a lot of questions, because we are a traditional manufacturing regulated kind of organization. So what are we doing to ensure that we have a gender diverse workforce? If you see the graph, they show a healthy growth pattern, and year on year we are trying to increase the number of women who work within our various organizations. We have a huge focus on cadre hiring of women officers. 30 to 40% of our women trainees from campuses. We also, if you see the engagement scores, our women officers are actually showing healthy engagement scores which have grown over the last 2 to 3 years. We do know that we have some work to do from a mid to senior management level in terms of our women representation. A large chunk of our women officers is in the junior management, but I think that is also testimony to the fact that we are very conscious of the fact that we need to work towards gender diversity, and we are starting on the right track. We also launched multiple enabling policies over the last many years to ensure that women are able to continue working with us after joining and don't have to sort of drop out due to various cultural or social or whatever other reasons that they may have. So we provide performance management, appraisal rating, protection during maternity leave. We consciously monitor the ratios of women officers being promoted. We have a very strong second career program, and in the last financial year we have launched two important programs. One is the Tara Power Mom, which actually handholds young women as they come back to work after motherhood, to ensure that, because that was one point which was identified as a strong drop-off point for women. We've got a very strong program there, and we've got encouraging response on that in the few months that it has been in action. And an Aspire Women Mentoring program to encourage and handhold women in middle management to graduate to senior management. We also have a safe and secure workplace policies, cost sensitization workshops, special travel provisions for women employees, self-defense programs, to ensure that women feel that they are working in a safe environment when they work with Tara Power. Which is a good segue into talking about safety. Our safety aspiration is to be a leader in safe work practices in global power and energy businesses. We are a global leader. The aspirations are become a global leader, have safe work practices, and monitor our safety performance. And as you can see from the chart, we have continuously been working towards an LTIFR target reducing over the last few years. From a governance perspective, we have a very robust governance structure in place. Our board of directors has complete oversight over our operations, our sustainability agenda, our CSR operations, our risk management framework, and the board of directors is responsible to the shareholders. We are obviously signatories to the Tata Code of Conduct, and every employee is aware of their responsibility towards that. And other than that, of course, we have the codes of conduct for independent and non-independent directors, whistleblower policies, risk management frameworks, and so on. So we have a very robust structure in place to ensure that whatever the company is doing is being monitored at the right level. We have a best-in-class risk management process, which covers all aspects from risk identification to analysis, to mitigation plans, reviews, improvements, and then feedback to ensure that we are on a continuous loop. So we are quite confident that the processes that we are following on this front are adequate, and we are also working to ensure that we are always on top of new developments on this. That's basically an update from our side. Just a few things that I wanted to highlight is that from a ESG agenda perspective, the key focus areas for us, other than the public commitments that we have made on circular economy and net zero and all, have been around the area of disclosure and transparency. We have really increased our visibility on disclosure and transparency to the outside world. On our website, you will find a whole host of information available on what is it that the organization is doing, how are we ensuring that we keep sustainability at the center of our strategy, and how we are working closely with all our businesses to ensure that our roadmap and our targets are on track. So that's it from our side. I will stop presenting now. Rahul, if you have anything to add here, and then maybe we could take some questions.
Thanks a lot, Jyoti. I think you have summarized it quite well. So probably what we would do is we would jump into the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the Q&A session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may please raise their virtual hand.
Pratik, in the meantime, till we wait for the team to assemble, thank you so much, ma'am, for this very informative and detailed presentation. Just wanted to know, so from your perspective, Tatas have been doing ESG long before ESG was actually fashionable, right? So now that this theme has really come to the forefront, what changes are you seeing? I mean, are there really any changes in the group behavior, or it's more of a thing of showcasing it now better? If you could share your views on that.
So like you said, the group has been far more conscious of ESG than, just treating it as a buzzword or jumping onto the bandwagon when it has become a huge agenda to the outside world. I think, I don't think much changes for us because we've always been conscious. But yes, I think what we are definitely working towards is ensuring that we now talk a lot more about it in terms of the correct information flowing out, in terms of our interactions with our key stakeholders, and also ensuring that we are doing what is the right things for us to be doing. So if you see, while the Prime Minister has put out a net zero target for the company at 2070, we haven't really gone ahead and said that we will also work towards that. We have in fact advanced our targets from the earlier mentioned 2050 deadline to actually trying to achieve them well before 2050 and 2045 if possible also.
We have a question from Mr. Anil Kumar Jain. Mr. Jain, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you everyone. Thank you, Jyoti, for the very interesting presentation made on the ESG journey. I just want to know, you mentioned that you have achieved your target for water neutrality. So what initiative and what methodology is used to declare these neutrality? Means what exactly?
So I will just request my colleague Vaishnavi to answer this from a technical perspective, and then I'll add on from an overall perspective.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for the question. We have set out on a target for water neutrality and also waste management. So what we do as an organization is something that we also report regularly. We have one of the best specific water consumption rates in all of the country, and we ensure that the fresh water consumption is to the minimum. So the cooling water that is required for our major thermal plants is from the seawater source, and therefore the freshwater usage is as it is limited, and the fresh water that is used is rotated multiple times, so that the consumption of fresh water itself is limited. When we are talking about water neutrality, what it means is that we put back as much water into nature as we take from source, and on that we have multiple projects. All of our receiving stations are getting ready to be having rainwater harvesting, and that has been done to a large extent. All of our civil structures and plants also have rainwater harvesting. And in addition to that, we work with the communities to enable them in terms of, water preservation and conservation. One of the important areas for water neutrality for us is in remote arid sites, which are our renewable sites, where water is a much more precious resource. And there we have worked on robotic panel cleaning, which is right now in the pilot stage, but as we go further, it is something that is anticipated to reduce the water usage itself. So there are multiple steps that Tata Power is taking in consciously both reducing the usage of fresh water and also putting back into nature the amount of water that we are consuming through, consuming through multiple projects, whether it is rainwater harvesting or community-related projects. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, fine. Thank you.
We have the next question from Mr. Ritesh. Ritesh, can you please go ahead with it?
Yep. Thank you, Apurva. Thank you, Jyoti, for a very in-depth presentation. My first question, probably I'll just continue with the prior one. When it comes to water intensity, how should one understand it? Just like for carbon, you have scope 1, 2, and 3. When it comes to water, there are multiple variables on surface water, water replenishment, etc., etc. So how should one understand it from a layman standpoint to when we say like will be water positive or something of that sort? If there are multiple buckets, if you can make it easy for us on how to comprehend it, that would be great.
Yeah, I think you put it very aptly. There are multiple layers to understanding the water usage in any industry, and water consumption can be looked at from a blue water consumption, grey water consumption. So there are many ways of looking at water consumption. But to look at it in a simple layman perspective, I think what we are looking at is fresh water, because that has alternative usage for civilians, and that fresh water consumption has to be limited to the maximum, extent. And if we are able to put back as much water as we are taking into our processes back to nature, that would make us water neutral. However, if there is a specific question in terms of water consumption and the way of evaluating it, you could just ask that question, and me and Dr. Rita will try and answer that.
Sure. Probably I'll connect with you separately to understand this concept better. I had a related question again. I think based on my readings, one of the Gazette notifications from Government of India indicated that for each facility, the water consumption has to reduce by 20%. There are certain penalties which are there, but the quantum is not that meaningful. So most of the corporates haven't cared much about. But given we are Tata's, I would love to hear what your reflections are on that particular variable.
Yeah, so the penalty is not what has driven the House of Tata. I think compliance is not what we look at. There is a certain cognizance in terms of the natural resources that we are tapping into, which has been there right from the planning and conception phase of each of these projects. So most of our projects on environmental parameters would be best of class. But I would be happy to connect with you offline and get into any specifics that we need to understand.
Sure, that's helpful. I had a little bit of high-level question. how does the company approach sustainability versus profitability? There are very clear-cut goals, what you have indicated about getting into hybrid and given a clear-cut targets on 2025 and FY30, which is usually commendable, and it sets a benchmark for other players in the industry as well. But when it comes to balancing profitability versus taking a course on sustainability, what is the working philosophy?
I will answer. I will begin the answer, and then I'll request my colleagues to join in on this. Sustainability is in effect, one of the pillars of sustainability is in effect the economic sustainability also. So when you are looking at environment, you are looking at social, and you are also looking at economic. So sustainability is a larger umbrella subject which includes and subsumes the topic of economic sustainability too. So if you will see the kind of businesses that we have ventured into right now, are businesses that we truly believe are businesses in the future which are going to be strongholds for Tata Group to become the utility of the future. So I can see Rahul is online, and I'll hand over to Rahul to try and complete that answer.
Vaishnavi, I think you have put it very aptly, Vaishnavi, that what we are looking at is profit with sustainability balance. And one of the key philosophy that we believe in is that for any solution to become sustainable and long-term in nature, it has to be profitable. Today we have seen that technologies which have focused more on the environmental side without necessarily being profitable has not been able to get that kind of investment which could reduce the cost of power. And in India, that is something which is a very important aspect. How do we make sure that this electricity is made available to the larger population? And therefore, we firmly believe that for any solution or any initiative that will be pursued as part of our sustainability strategy that would in the long term generate profit also for us. We cannot sacrifice one for the focus of another.
Now I'm just trying to add on to this. I think what is beneficial right now is that the entire ecosystem is aligning towards and recognizing the fact that sustainability is one of the key tenets of running businesses. So right from government taking targets to the sector, setting up and making the necessary shifts that are required, both in terms of technology and in terms of attributing growth towards the renewable business. We are also seeing that very firm cognizance coming from our own customer group. So for the very first time, we have started green power supply, where we have seen significant uptake from the customers. So it really helps that the entire ecosystem and all the stakeholders who are involved in our business have started looking at sustainability as one of the key tenets of business, and therefore profitability is something that is definitely possible.
That's quite useful. If I just try to place the question the other way around, a company has very bold targets on hybrid going forward, but at the same point in time, the company also needs to have a certain pipeline, basically phase out plans for certain projects. Now, one can always argue that the phase out should be at a faster rate. If that's the question, if one had to balance, say, sustainability, profitability versus the current cash flows, then what is the philosophy? I also cover steel companies, including Tata Steel. So I'm just trying to understand the working philosophy. What is more important? Is it the current cash flows? So that's definitely important. But when you internally consume or decide on taking down a particular power plant, is it purely from the age of the asset, or is it like you are taking a stance on sustainability as well based on the type of boiler it's using and carbon intensity it has?
Let me probably try to jump onto this question. In this case, I think you are taking a very good example, because I think that sets the context also in terms of how you are looking at it. I think with respect to phasing out of power plant, we have to be mindful that one part is, of course, as you mentioned, that whether cash flow is the most important thing. But more than the cash flow part, I think what is important to also appreciate is that these power plants, we have got certain obligations in terms of whether the power sector agreement that we have on supply arrangement that we have entered into. And for us to create a decision
to probably advance the phase out also depends a lot on the discussion on the property revenue, because there will be commercial implications for us as well as from a power supply situation. It will also have an impact on the power supply situation. So I think from a phase out perspective, I think the focus is more on making sure that whenever there is a contractual obligation that Tata Power has, Tata Power performs on those contractual obligations, and we leave out the whatever is the stock purchase period that is the profit revenue period that is there. And thereafter, I don't think the focus then is then on the cash flow and Jyoti investment and also jumping at that point of time, because once it is out of that kind of an obligation, then I think it is much more clearer for us as to what we want to do with that profit.
Vaishnavi, you are on mute.
I'm so sorry. Thank you, Rahul, for that perspective. I think it's very important for us as an organization to meet our contractual obligations in the kind of rights duration. But also something that I wanted to bring on the table to people to notice is that there is a certain technological readiness that is required for renewables to take a larger share of the pie in the country's power supply. There are grid stability considerations. There is intermittency of power, which requires storage, large-scale storage capacity to come online before that transition can happen. And if you need base load capacity today, there is a certain requirement for the existing plants to continue till that transition can happen smoothly. Power is power is the engine which drives the economic growth of a country. And we have a role to play there as nation builders. So unless and until that technological readiness is there with the storage capacity that is required and the grid stability is addressed, it is I think some time for us to go into phase out, and we would love to do phase out earlier, but those considerations will also play when these decisions are being taken.
Sure, that's useful. Just one last question before I hand it back to Apurva. What do we make of sustainable finance? Are we looking to tap into bonds wherein the cost of funding could significantly be lower? That's my last question. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So thanks for that question, and that is something which is an item which is being tracked very closely at Tata Power level. We keep on evaluating options of these bonds and sustainable financing, and you would see something in the near future. At this point of time, there is nothing which has been closed out yet or executed or in the physical institution. But you will see that sustainable financing is also a form of very important part of the overall portfolio of funding options that we have, especially given the significant shift that is happening in the ESG profile of Tata.
Great. Thank you so much for comprehensive answers and a detailed presentation. Over to you, Apurva. Thank you.
Thanks, Suresh. We have a question from Ms. Gurpreet for Vadhva. Gurpreet, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Apurva. And thank you, Jyoti ma'am, for the presentation. It was a very nice presentation. I just wanted to ask that in one of the presentations you have given that you'll reach carbon neutrality by 2045. So exactly is carbon neutrality and net zero, are these two same things? And my second question is that we have emissions in scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3. So how will you achieve carbon neutrality in the scope 3 emissions?
Sorry, just requesting Vaishnavi to jump in here on the scope 1, scope 2 detailing, please for you.
Yeah, hi Gurpreet. I think, one of the burning questions on carbon neutrality and net zero is something that you brought to the table. Net zero is a concept which is an aspiration, and being truly net zero is a long journey. So if you're asking whether carbon neutrality and net zero are the same, net zero means that you're tending to mitigate all the carbon emissions from your businesses. Right now the position that Tata Power has Scope 1 is 99.9% and above of the emissions that we are looking at because of the thermal business that we have. But as we do thermal phase out and we are looking at renewable business, the share of Scope 2 and Scope 3 will increase as we go ahead. And there are multiple measures that can be taken to mitigate our emissions. So on Scope 2, it is about the power that we purchase. So just like we are encouraging our customers to have a higher share of green power and meet their renewable aspirations, Tata Power would also be looking at sourcing their power from green sources. And on Scope 3, we have, Jyoti ma'am had mentioned that we already have an employee app, and that employee app is to make every single employee cognizant of their carbon footprint and take enough measures to minimize it. Net zero is really also hinging on the fact that we will have to have the ability to do carbon mitigation or create a carbon sink. So Tata Power engages in large-scale afforestation where we plant 10 lakh plus trees every year, and that is one of the largest and most efficient carbon sinks known to mankind. And in addition, we are also engaged with academia. We are working with IIT Chennai. We are working with other academic institutions and entrepreneurs to evaluate carbon mitigation technology. The minimization is one part of the equation, but also to be able to create an effective carbon sink is something that we are focusing our energies on. Today, it is through afforestation, and we hope very soon to have technology which will help us offset the limited carbon emissions that we have as our renewable footprint grows and we are phasing out our thermal. So eventually the balance between carbon emissions and what we are mitigating will allow us to reach net zero. Richa, is there a
Thank you.
Yes,
I would also ask one more thing, when you transfer the power to the grid, so do you consider that in your Scope 3 emissions? And if there are any losses, so what is your roadmap to control those losses in the power by transferring it to the grid?
So we include in our T&D business, we include the component from T&D losses in our carbon intensity. So that is something that we have started from last year. And as our distribution footprint grows, that is something that we will continue to monitor and track and minimize. You are also aware that Tata Power has one of the best track records in terms of minimizing the AT&C losses. NDPL, CPTPL story where within a span of 7 to 8 years we were able to bring down losses from close to 40-50% to 7 to 8% levels is documented. I think similar replication is happening in our Odisha business where in our Tata Power Central distribution business we have been able to reduce the losses significantly in the 1 year that we have been in operations there. And there are many components to AT&C loss reduction which require both infrastructural interventions and also intervention in terms of the way the business is conducted. So we are having large-scale digitalization projects and improved efficiency in the way the business is conducted to further support the AT&C loss reduction.
Thank you, Ashwini, for sharing.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, my colleague Prateek wanted to make an announcement for the benefit of the audience. Prateek?
I would like to announce that we've added another session for tomorrow at 11 a.m. to understand the role of carbon credit rating agency in achieving ESG compliance. Hope to see you all for this. If you need any further details, please reach out to me. I will also post the registration link on chat.
So thanks Prateek. We have the next question from Pooja. Pooja, please unmute yourself.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Hi, thanks Apurva for the opportunity to ask the question, and congratulations to the entire Tata Power Sustainability team for stupendous performance in the S&P Global. I am Suta from ITC Limited, Corporate Environment, Health and Safety and Sustainability. So I look after the public reporting. So I have a couple of questions. One is that on the water neutrality, since I would like to ask this question to Vaishnavi directly because she is handling this query. So if you can tell in a couple of words, like how to define water neutrality, if you can give the formula, how in which you arrive at saying that Tata Power, the number of sites that have been declared as water neutral. This is my first question. And in my second question, when you are walking on the journey of becoming on net zero, so the suppliers emission form a very critical part of the equation. So till what extent of the supplier do you go? Tier 1, Tier 2, or how do you take the suppliers on board for the going on that journey? So over to your question.
Thank you, Pooja. We are very glad to share that we are water neutral and in the process of becoming water neutral for many of our renewable sites. There is a certain process that needs to be carried out before we can, declare the number of sites in public domain that should be expected to be completed shortly. As per our thermal businesses, you do understand the quantum of water that is used in a thermal business is slightly larger. So becoming water neutral for thermal is a journey, and what we can definitely target for is to minimize the freshwater usage in our thermal plants. The only way where we can be truly and completely water neutral for thermal plants which have significant water usage is when the units start getting offline. So that is the reason why some of our meter units are built into the water neutrality targets that we have taken for Tata Power. So that's to answer the first part of your question. The second part of your question, yes, the kind of focus that is there on our supply chain ecosystem is very high. We have a responsible supply chain policy, and we have all our suppliers are onboarded to our system through a portal called Ariba. So it allows us a certain degree of method to build in accountability into the transactions that we have with the suppliers. So as a part of the onboarding process, all of our large suppliers have made commitments of their own on the ESG site, and it covers, I think today, as of today, 60 to 70% of our supplier base. The smaller suppliers, we have not probably completed the process, but there are multiple initiatives that we take in terms of local sourcing of produce, including affirmative action related businesses in our sourcing. So there are multiple initiatives that are underway, but if you ask me, I cannot claim to say that 100% of the supply chain ecosystem has been addressed. It is a journey that we are on. Maybe we could connect offline, and we have a lot to learn from you as well.
Thanks a lot for the responses. All the best.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions specifically on Tata Power's potential contribution towards the net zero target of the Tata Group as a whole. So when it sits to the team, what opportunities do you foresee for Tata Power in this space? I know it's probably on the renewable energy side and even on other aspects of decarbonization. And have we already started working on those?
So yes, we obviously work very closely with the group on this whole agenda, and work is already ongoing with the group in terms of what are the possible synergies that can be learned from other companies, best practice sharing and whatever. I think one of the big things which is a very clear synergy and visible to everyone will be the work that we are doing in the EV space. In terms of, while it may not be directly related to our operations in terms of whether we are reducing carbon from our thermal plants, but if you look at the overall ESG agenda from the group perspective and as Tata Power and Tata Group as a responsible corporate citizen, the e-mobility initiative is a very large very large one, right? That's why we're working very closely with the group to enable the entire e-mobility ecosystem via the EV charging space. On the pure carbon neutrality, circular economy, and the sort of traditional SDG linked principles that we have and this is work to work. We definitely work very closely with all of them, including somebody mentioned Tata Steel during the course of the conversation, including Tata Steel and Tata Sustainability Group. So, I mean, if there's anything specific that you want to know, we can help with information on that. But at an overall level, definitely we work closely with the group, and there is sharing of ambitions, of best practices, and of agendas.
Okay, I think that's quite useful. And secondly, last question from my end, I think that is more to do with the clean business that we have created. So as you said, that a lot of synergistically, I mean, a lot of things we have started working with the group. But going ahead, are there any other avenues where we can foresee something like this, something which we did in the EV space? And also, if you could share some anecdote or experiences from the microgrid project. So how do they operate? What's the ownership model? And yeah, I mean, just for the benefit of the audience, that would be very helpful.
Vaishnavi, do you want to talk about the fly ash and the Tata Realty angle in terms of the construction industry angle that we're trying to build, and I can talk about the microgrid.
Yes. So we are already having 100% fly ash utilization, and what we are also cognizant of is that fly ash can be one of the important raw materials that can be used in the construction industry. So we hold a couple of patents around products that have been developed from ash, and these are pellets and construction materials which have been tested and authenticated for the construction business. So we are working closely with the group and trying to evaluate opportunities where there can be a linkage in terms of ash being looked at not as a waste material but as a byproduct that can feed into another industry. So that's the first part to the answer.
So I think that's very helpful.
On the microgrid space, and this is something that came out of your question. See, the microgrid thing was initially set up as a community project serving a cluster of households, and it has the battery energy storage system. So it's basically to reach energy to those parts of the country where energy access till now has been either very limited or not existent or intermittent, and hence the whole initiative is to really light up the lives of people who have not had access to energy till now, right? So the model is started off being like a community system, and it is a little different, but it's almost like a mini generating plant which is set up to feed the power supply within a radius of about 2 to 3 kilometers. That's why it's called a microgrid, because it's only meant to serve the needs of a very small area, and therefore the approach also allows them to access power without incurring capital costs or worrying about too much of maintenance. So each setup will cater to about 150 to 200 odd customers at an overall level, and then locally relevant enterprises can be set up, which then also allow them to build sustainable livelihoods in the area. So that's basically the model that we are currently working on. This model was supported by the Rockefeller Institute. It may evolve into different formats and dimensions as it goes forward, because like we mentioned, we are at about 180, 190 odd kind of microgrids as of now, touching about 10,000 people currently, and the ambition is to reach about 10,000 odd microgrids in the next 4 to 5 years, and hence that's many more lives. So it is an evolving model, but this is basically how it started. And if you need more information, we can share it with you offline, because it's also got extensive public coverage. So actually, if you search, you will get some information, but I can also share some more information with you if you have anything specific that you want to know about the dynamics of the market.
Sure. So I think we have come to a conclusion of this session. We're out of time now. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Batul, thank you, Vaishnavi, Rahul, Richa, for sharing your thoughts and the information with us. Thank you all the participants.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, thank you, Vaishnavi.
If you have wanted to connect offline, if you want to just make that connect for us, we'll be happy to answer.
Sure, sir. We'll be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Participants, we have started the next session of Vedanta with Mr. Gaurav Saru, Director Carbon and Social Performance. Please join us for that session. Thank you.